Hey everyone, so in this video we're going to pick up right where we left off at the end of the last video. We said that there are multiple uses for forms. We showed you how to use a form to do data entry into a table. We said that you can use a form to set the criteria for a query, and that's what we're going to do. So just as a quick recap, if you open up this query, brings you to the Home tab. We go to View and Design View because, again, database objects have multiple ways of viewing them, either the way that you functionally use it or the way you design it. So we're going to go into Design View. And for the EE_status field, we are looking for criteria termed. So what we said is we want this to be more versatile. So what we're going to do, we're going to eventually remove this string, this constant, and replace it with a field. And when you change the value in that field, you're changing the criteria because the value in that field will be put here in the criteria selection. We can't do that quite at this moment because we don't have the field yet. So we'll create the field and then come back to this. And again, you do this for two reasons. One, you really want to hide away the tables and the queries. You don't want these unfriendly objects, so they're not user friendly. So you want to hide those away from the user and give them a friendly user interface. The second thing, you do not want them to be able to randomly browse through the different records and browse through the different database objects and possibly make changes to the structure itself. So we're going to close this and we're going to create a new form. So just like last time, create blank form. And again, multiple ways to view the database object. We're going to change this to design view. And we're going to shut off those record selectors just like last time. So we click on design. We click on property, make sure the make sure the form itself is selected. And in this case, there's nothing else really to select. So the form is selected. That's what the dot means. And we're going to make a few changes, but not all the changes that we made last time. So if we go to the Format tab, we will indeed shut off the record selector. So set record selector to no, navigation button to no. And here's what's different. Data. We're not going to set a record source. We're not going to link this to a table because we're not going to write to the table. And since we're not going to write to the table, data entry can stay as no. So we're not going to do those two things that we did last time. Okay, so what are we going to do with this? We're going to add a combo box, also known as a drop-down box. Last I checked in Visual Basic and Microsoft Excel, I believe it did accept the phrase drop-down box. So for some reason, Microsoft alternates between calling this object, this control that we're about to look at, it alternates between calling it a combo box and a drop-down box. Most people probably typically call it a drop-down box. So that's this object here, or this control here. Just left click, drag, and drop. Two choices. I want the combo box to get the values from another table or query. You would do this if you have a lot of choices and they show up in multiple forms and they change, okay? So if, say, this is you want this drop-down box, this combo box, to list all the products that your company offers because you're trying to put in an order or you're trying to do a purchase, okay? You want all those objects available to you, okay? You want all those items available to you. Well, if those things change, you add new ones and subtract other ones, if you make those changes to a table, then this drop-down box will automatically change because every time you open this drop-down box, it's going to look to that table. So if you add something to the table, it'll show up. If you take some away from the table, it'll no longer show up. In this case, we have two values, so we don't need to do that. So we click, I will type in the values that I want. Next. We'll just stretch that a little bit. Even if this isn't wide enough, it's not that big of a deal. It's really just a visual issue. It doesn't actually lose any data, but if you can avoid visual issues like that, like cutoff and things like that, it's best to avoid it. You don't want to confuse the user. So we're going to put in, I believe the two choices were active and termed. Going to click on next. It says, what do you want the label to be called? So that's the label over here. We can choose, let's see, employee status. And again, this is just a label, so you can have spaces because it's not an actual field. And you click on finish. You notice it changes it to employee status. Let's grab that upper left corner and just move it here. And we'll kind of center this. And like I said, these are not going to be aesthetically appealing. I have no aesthetic sense. So I'm not going to like waste your time, tweaking those things. Now, with this selected, as you can see, you no longer have the dot up here. You have this selected. If you come over here, you now see that for data, for row source, you now have active and term. So you could actually technically come over here and you could do, say, zoom, and you can just add new ones. So as you can see, the format is quotes, the value, quotes, and a semicolon. So you'd add a semicolon and put something else here, like maybe you wanted leave of absence. So you could manually do semicolon, quote, LOA, and then do OK. You can see it shows it there. And actually, let's test to make sure this is working. So we're going to save this. It wants a name. We'll call this EE underscore reporting. It's not a report since it's a form, but ultimately we're going to generate a query, and then we'll probably later have that query display in a report. As I said, I'm not a big fan of reports, but they are good for internal monitoring, if nothing else. We click on OK, we go to View, and now this is the way, again, this is really how you would interact with the form. So you're not in design mode anymore, you're in the form view. So if we click on this drop-down box, there's the choices: active, termed, and leave of absence. So one of the reasons why I added leave of absence is A, I forgot to put it in originally, but two, I wanted to demonstrate that it's not etched in stone, that you can indeed make a change to this if you forget to do it in the original wizard, okay? The wizards are there to help you, not bind you. And this here says that you can change the values. So depending on what you're doing, you may want that there, particularly for maybe it's a brand new database. You want to give your end users the ability to make a change, but I'll show you how to lock that out in a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go back to View and Design View. And the box itself, the drop-down box, okay, it is called, if we go to All, it's Combo 0, because again, it's a combo box. So let's call this status underscore EE CMB for combo box, okay? And you can call it whatever you want. Now, I mentioned about having fields have good representative names. This wouldn't be forward facing, so you can be a little bit more lax with this because this is only going to be seen by you and only when you're changing the design, which presumably you're not going to do a whole lot of, okay? But when this comes up in a list when you're typing out in Visual Basic, it'll be easy to identify. So status EE combo box, or CMB short for combo box. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we need this field to transmit a value to that query. So how do we do that? Well, let's close this for now. Yes, we want to save it. We go to that query. Again, this is basically its data sheet mode. So you want to go to View, you want to go to Design View, and we're going to eliminate this where it says termed. So we're going to delete that. Going to right click. For some reason, this is a little bit touchy. For some reason, sometimes build won't show up here. I honestly have no idea why. So if it doesn't, you might just have to click away, click back. In the words of my Microsoft Access Database professor. Why? Because it's Access. Sometimes things just don't quite work the way you'd want it to do. There was one glitch in particular, I don't remember what it was offhand, but the glitch had existed so long that it was actually in the textbook, and the textbook told you how to avoid it. So the textbook told you how to avoid something that Microsoft hadn't even gotten around to fix yet. It was great. So choose Build. And this is basically the criteria. Remember, you're in the criteria section here. So what we're going to say is that criteria is going to be the field from that form. So this might be a little bit messy to look at, but basically you're going to drill down through your database until you get to what you want. So if you see here, this is the name of the database. We're going to click on the plus sign. It's a form, right? So we're going to click on the form. Loaded form means it'll only use a form that's loaded when it's running, or you can use any form even if it's not loaded. So we're going to expand that. And we're going to choose add EE, actually not add EE, it's EE reporting, my apologies. So it's EE reporting. And sure enough, there it is, status EE CMB. See, that's a lot more friendly for you to see rather than combo 0. Now, if there's only one combo box, you know what one it is. But the more you add, the more complex this could become. So in this case, we rename them so they're more meaningful. So status EE combo, it defaults to value, so you can just double click and select value. So what it's saying, it's drilling down from the general to the specific. It's saying it's a form, which form? The EE reporting form, okay? From that form, what control? The status EE combo control. So it's just drilling from general to specific. We click on OK, and it shows up down there. You can widen this if you want. You really don't have to, because again, this is just visual. It doesn't actually cut off the value. And then I believe what we can do is we save this. Then we can close it. And now what we're going to want to do, when we so click on EE reporting. When we choose a value, we want one of two things to happen. Either we want to choose the value and have it automatically open up the form, or we can add a button that says, do it, open up the form. So generally speaking, you want people to be able to change their mind before a report runs. So what we're going to do is we're going to add another button to this. And I don't think we did that in the last video. So we're going to go to View. Again, we're going to leave the form view, which is how you normally interact with the form, the way your end users would interact with the form, and go to Design View. My apologies if I keep repeating that. It's just that was one of the things that I personally had trouble with, was the idea that you can keep changing how you're viewing the database object. I'm like, where is it? Oh, that's right. You got to change the view. So we're going to add a button. And generally speaking, the location means nothing. Like I could take this and move it down here. Doesn't change the functionality. Okay, so for the most part, location doesn't mean much of anything. Like I said, the only way it would affect functionality is if you're tabbing between fields, you'd expect the tab to move sequentially. If you move things out of order, then it'll tab out of order. But that, again, really doesn't change much functionality because you'll still eventually tab through everything. So this is the button. So we click on that. I think in older versions, they actually refer to this as command rather than button. And we'll just put this wherever. Again, it's just left click, drag, drop. And again, you get the command button wizard. I have other tutorials that show you how you can do this manually. So you can cancel out of this, which we won't, but you can cancel out of this and actually create a class module and manually put in the coding yourself. Why would you want to do that other than to abuse yourself? Probably because you might have some very specific things you want to happen. This is a very simple database, so you don't need to do that. Depending on the response to this video and to the series, I may go further. We'll see. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to run a query. So if we click on miscellaneous, we can choose run query. We can click on next, and then EE query is what will be, it's the only query, so it's going to default to that. So keep in mind, if you have multiple queries, they'll be listed here. I'm going to click on next. And again, do you want text? Do you want a picture? We'll do text. It'll say run query. Again, this is the preview over here. You have run query here, so it's previewing it here. And we will do next and see how it's calling it command. So again, up here it calls it a button, down here it calls it command. So you kind of have this in between where it refers it to both. So we can call this run query button. We'll just do BTN and finish. So run query. And if you want, you can change the size. And actually what you can do, you can actually change the label too. See how I clicked on it and you got the cursor? You can change it if you want, if you decide you made a typo, whatever. So a lot of these things are not etched in stone. You can go back and modify them. Okay, so we created our form. We created a field. That field is now utilized by the query, and then we have a button that says run the query. So when we say run that query, it should indeed take the value that we choose. So we're going to save this. And if I made a mistake, I'll probably edit it out because I'm incredibly vain. So let's go to View. Let's go to Active. Let's go to Run Query. And we only have one active person. Close the query. Termed. Run query. Sure enough, you only have the termed person. Close it. We have no one who is LOA, so we're going to select LOA. No results. So just like that, you've hidden away the design view of the query, and now you just get the datasheet results. And then the next step that you can do, you can then take the query and have that be the data source for a report. And then rather than even looking at datasheet view, because right now, this is datasheet view. So if you have 10, 20, 30 records, it's going to be lined up just like a spreadsheet. So if you don't want that, if you want it to be more organized and again, more user-friendly, you could have this embedded in a report. But again, it's really for internal monitoring because unless something has changed, and things do change all the time, generally speaking, people will usually just export the spreadsheet and then people will then slice and dice it into whatever, into Excel, into Word, into PowerPoint, whatever they want to use. Now what we're going to do, so we've seen how a form can do data entry into a table. So a form interacts with a table. We've seen how a form can interact with a query. Now what we're going to do, we're going to have a form interact with other forms. In other words, you're going to make a main menu. Okay, and then I think that will be it for this video, depending on the length of it. I don't think I want to go into reports yet. I think I'd rather cover some other topics first, because again, my bias, I'm not big on reports. So let's close this. And then we're going to choose Create. We're going to choose Blank Form. Again, this should start looking familiar. We've done this a few times now. View, Design View. We're going to shut off those navigation buttons. So again, we go to Design. We go to Property Sheet. The form as a whole is selected. That's the dot there. We go to Format. We go to Record Selection. No. Navigation buttons. No. We don't need to do anything with data because this is just the form that's going to lead to other forms. So that should be sufficient. And let's actually save this. And we'll call this main underscore menu. And now what we do, we're going to create, there's a few ways you can do this, and it's really arbitrary. You could create a drop-down box, so a combo box that as soon as you choose a choice, it opens up that form. Or you could have a button that says Add New Employee. You click on that button and it opens the form. A button that says EE Reporting and it opens up that form. 6 one way, 1/2 dozen the other. All depends how you think it works best for your situation. So I already showed you how to use, actually I've shown you both. I've shown you how to use a button to open another object, and I've shown you how to use a combo box, so I guess it really doesn't matter. We've already seen both. So you're going to click on button, left click, drag. What do we want this to do? Form operators. Last time we chose miscellaneous. This time we're choosing form operators. We want to open a form. Okay, so what form? Now here we only have multiple objects. Up to this point, we've usually only seen one object. So we want the first one to be, we don't want the main menu because that would be cyclical. It would just be open up the form we're already in. Let's do add EE form. Open form and find specific data to display. Nope. Open the form and show all records. So really neither applies. I mean, you have to choose one, but really we're just opening the form. So I believe we can leave it as it doesn't matter because we're just opening form. You could always cancel out of this and do a macro that just says open form. So we'll do this for now. We can always remove it if we find it's creating problems. We'll change this to text and we'll change this to add employee. Now again, this is just a caption. I believe the proper term is what you see here is a caption as opposed to a label. This is just a caption so you can use spaces here. And then we'll call this add underscore EE, add underscore EE underscore BTN. We call the other one a BTN. So finish, and it says add employee. Now what we're going to do is we're going to kind of rinse and repeat. So we're going to click on a button, going to draw it out, and I'll show you how you can match the sizes. Same thing, form operator, open form, next. This time it's EE reporting, next, and text, and we'll just call it EE reporting. Now remember, this is just opening the form, not what the form is attached to. And we'll call this EE report. And I think we actually type out the word form. You can do or FRM. Try to be consistent. Doesn't really matter when it's a label or a caption. Actually, this is the name of the button, so let's do the underscores. I believe for those I've still been using underscores for. Finish. Let's see. Yeah, I did the underscores for that button. Okay, so I was talking about making these the same size. So under format, you can actually see width, height, and then, it's positioning from top and left. So you could make this say width, maybe like 1.1 inches even. And then height, maybe make this 0.3 even. And then just set the same ones. Height, 1.1. And then this one was 0.3. And now the same size, and then you can just kind of line them up. You can add a label at top. Again, the label has no functional purpose other than to communicate information to the end user. So this is label, this is text box. Do not get them confused. Left click drag, and you can call this main menu. This is, again, the text within a label, and so you can use spaces. And you can go to format, and again, set whatever, 24, bold, underline. Yes, it's beautiful. Just absolutely lovely. My sense of aesthetics are unmatched. Okay, so if I haven't forgotten anything, that should do it. So we'll save this, and we'll then go to Home, View, and now this is how it would show up to the end user. And if all is going according to plan, clicking on Add Employee should open the Add EE form, and the EE reporting should open the EE reporting, and then you'd use the form as normal. So Add Employee, sure enough, Add a New Employee opened up. EE reporting, and this, sure enough, opened up. So I think that's it for this lesson, because now we've shown you how to use a form to interact and set the criteria for a query, and we showed you how to use a form to help with overall navigation and the kind of connectivity between the database as a whole, as far as using it to make a main menu. You could also have submenus and things like that. So I think that's it for now. In the next video, I might show you how to put the query into a report. Again, just because I don't like reports doesn't mean you shouldn't. So I think I will have the query show up have the results show up in a report. And then at that point, what we'll probably do, we'll then have a secondary function, because right now this is all about the employees, okay? Well, generally speaking, yes, you're going to have a table for the employees, but then you usually do something with that. Like you can use an employee table to be to choose whether or not you even have access to this database. Like right now we've done no security of any kind. So you could maybe select a name and then a password, and then that would get you into the database. as well as decide what this database is overall used for. Is this a case tracking database? Like, are people calling and complaining, and you're tracking those cases? Or is this an ordering database? The thing I have about ordering databases is very often you're actually going to be interacting with your vendors. So I really can't create a vendor site. So I already have some tutorials kind of like that, but it's really kind of challenging because, again, your interaction with a vendor would really be their site and you're placing an order and then they ship the stuff to you. So that's not something you would really do. Now, you could create a site that other people would access as far as if they're trying to order, but then you're missing a big chunk of it. You really don't have how they interact with your database. So I'll have to put some thought into exactly what to do with this. If you have any recommendations of what you'd like to see, please put that in the comments. And as I mentioned at the end of the last video, I'm trying to remove some of my older database videos, but unfortunately, they have so many statistics and metrics associated with them that if I were to delete them now, it would really kill the channel. So I ask kindly that if you enjoyed this and you found it useful, please like the video, please subscribe, and please make a comment about what you'd like to see next. And hopefully we can get rid of those older videos where the volume is not as good and I don't think I spoke as confidently and I don't think I gave as good of information. None of it was bad, but I don't think I spoke as decisively as I do now because those I recorded, 5+ years ago. Okay, so that should about do it. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you found this useful. And again, if there's things you want to see, please put in the comments field. Enjoy the rest of your day.